Okay, so Gojuja episode 34, titled Scattered Battle Scars Grey Glow. So this episode brings an end to the whole Rei and Ryukyo storyline that's been going on for like the past 13 or 14 episodes. Like, it finally comes to a conclusion, but the bigger battle isn't over just yet. So the whole premise of this episode is that you've got Ryukyo trying to have a party for everyone. He's trying to win the favor of Sumino because, Sumino's still mad about the revelations that she's learned within the past couple of episodes. But then you've got other stuff going on in the background that I kind of wish we focused on more, but it does come into play in this episode, and it's definitely setting up for something later down the line in the episode. So one thing we get in the cold opening is that we don't get a recap. It jumps right into the episode right away. We've got Bouquet and you've got Fire Candle finding Tegajun, and Tegajun is on the ground, and you can see that Tegajun is starting to emote more. She's starting to feel feelings, which is fascinating within itself because, Tegajun is like this AI created thing, or AI sort of imitation of frickin' Tegasword, and you have this moment where she feels sort of empathy and sort of apologizes for rushing in there without a pilot, and she feels sorry, she feels anger, so it looks like Tegajun is slowly starting to feel emotion, and I do wonder where that's going to go moving forward, because learning things about the Calamity that we've learned as the show goes on, I don't think that, the Baraiden are going to be, the final enemies as the show goes on, unless somehow, Tegajun gets corrupted by the Calamity, and then they'll probably push her to be the final boss. But we have yet to see. But it looks like they're finally learning how to emote in the end. Now, you do have an interesting battle at the start of the episode as well, and that is a fight between the Baraiden and Rei turning into Beldam in the end, and they're trying to find Shining Knife to see what they're doing because, they've sort of walked this lonely path because, they're like a descendant of the Calamity, but the Baraiden are like, hey, you're one of us. We don't care what you are as long as you stick with us. You know who you are. So they're very loyal to each other, and I like that about the Baraiden. Even though they're most of them probably these AI beings or creations, they have this sense of loyalty to each other, and they treat each other like family in the end, which is an interesting note to take notice of. So they find Rei at this weird abandoned house, but it looks like it's also this weird school, maybe. I don't know, because you see lockers, so I don't know if they filmed it in two different locations, because you see the building and then it looks like there's lockers on the side. I'm not entirely sure, but it was a cool fight scene because this episode was directed by Koichi Sakamoto, once again doing some amazing directing and fight choreography with the scenes that he works on. So one thing that we learn in this episode is that Beldam is able to get wounded. You have this scene where he's fighting Fire Candle and the others, and he gets wounded and they're actually able to bleed. So learning that the Calamity and stuff like that can bleed and stuff like that, that is definitely going to come into play later down the line. Well, it comes into play this episode, but it kind of shows that the Calamities have a weakness. So like I said, you've got the party that they have, and then eventually you have Rei and Ryukyo facing off against each other. And one of the things we see Rei do in this week's episode is that he summons Asum again, and Asum turns into Kyorenja and starts fighting off against the others. So we have that scene in the episode, and that was a really cool fight scene. Now, you do sort of have Rei and Ryukyu sort of having this back and forth between each other, sort of expressing their feelings in a way, and sort of their grievances towards each other, and sort of the bitterness and the rage that Rei feels in the end, because, he's consumed by all this anger. But you do have Ryukyu able to defeat him in the end, and as he's about to deliver the final blow, because, Rei's willing to die and put his life on the line with everything going on, you have this scene where Sumino jumps in, and even though she's morphed, she takes the blast, but the whole reason why she protected Rei in the end is because, if Rei dies, then she can't find out the location of her sister. So, Rei has to stay alive for just a little bit longer. But not only that, it's sort of Sumino's goal to be the one to find out and defeat Rei and find out where this guy actually is. So, Beldam comes out again, and then you have Rikio transforming with the Tega Sword. So he transforms with the Tega Sword because, it's a shared power-up. So he transforms in the end. And then what's really interesting is what you see in the episode is that when Sumino transforms into Ginga Red, she's able to use the Alliance of Orion transformation. So that shows that the Rangers can use the power-up forms in the show as well. So that should be really cool to see as well if we see more of that later down the line, because that can see other Rangers using power-ups or battleizer forms with their different transformations. So Ray/Beldam is defeated in the end. They turn giant. We get this really cool fight scene with the mech, with the brand new mech transformation, like it's doing flips and shit, and that's really cool. But in the end, Beldam is defeated, and it looks like it's their final appearance, but they could be back, you never know. But we'll probably see like another servant of the Calamity that's going to show up within the next story arc, because, we're 34 episodes into Gojuja. We've got about 16 to 15 episodes left, so we'll see what happens. But Ray is sort of put into prison where he's going to be refined and do time for the crimes he's committed. But one thing that happens is you see Miss Sweetcake and Assam get revived in the end. Now, Miss Sweetcake coming back is kind of like a cop-out because, the impact and the sadness of their death kind of gets taken away because, they come back like 2 or 3 episodes later, so that does kind of suck. But hey, it is what it is. Can't do anything about it. But Assam comes back and he says, I'm going to my home planet where they need me. And the other Rangers just laugh at him, like Ryukio. I think it's Ryukio, Horo, and Kijino. They kind of laugh at him. But then in the end, the spaceship comes down and takes him away. And they're sort of flabbergasted, which was kind of funny because, the animation you get when he gets taken off by his spaceship is like your typical UFO beaming, and then they've got these typical stock UFO CGI thing coming around and taking him away. Now Sumino does manage to find her sister Otto in the end, and we'll see where that's going to go because she's still in the hyperbolic time chamber, not the hyperbolic time chamber, but in the freezer Majigga, so she's still in that. So we'll see what happens, whether she's going to come back because, she had to be wearing the ring to be conscious. So we'll see where that plot line's going to go in the end and if they can find a cure for her. So we'll see where that happens. We'll see where that goes. That should be interesting moving forward, especially with the past rumors that were rumors, but I think they've been debunked by now, possibly. But yeah, that pretty much sums up the episode overall. I thought this was a fun episode overall, and we'll probably get a couple of episodes moving forward where each one of the Rangers are going to get the Tega Sword power up within the next couple of weeks or months, where it'll be their turn to get it moving forward. But thank you to the nice people of Twitter who have pointed out that we only have 2 more rings to see in Gojuja, and that is Deca Red, and I think it's Deca Red and Kakorenja. So those are the last 2 rings, because next week is Dairanger, and then after that there's only 2 more rings we have to see. But overall, this was a fun episode of Gojuja. I really enjoyed it. Can't wait to see what's going to happen next, and we'll see what's going to happen moving forward. So with that said, I will catch you guys later. Peace out, take care, bye.